Sometime between 5 and 20 million years ago, in the geologic Miocene epoch, the first cranes came to be. They are ancient. Not as old as the first ducks and chickens who hung out with the last of the dinosaurs before the big asteroid hit, but they've been around for perhaps 50 times as long as modern humans. Technically, birds are the last of the dinosaurs. No, not a descendant of this pteranodon who did a little gliding way back when. Believe it or not, our bird's closest relative is T-Rex. Notice the large wings. Now obviously this is not a direct descendant. The best fossils of Tyrannosaurus rex did show that they did have small feathers. Archaeopteryx is the oldest fossil of an actual bird we have found. And our oldest living bird is the Hoatzin. Genetic evidence suggests it has possibly been here, or in South America actually, for over 30 million years. At least 10 million years longer than the cranes. Sandhill cranes look ancient, and it doesn't take too much imagination to see the dinosaur similarities. They stand almost 4 feet tall and have a wingspan over 6 feet wide. They are hard to miss. That ancient paleo feeling is confirmed when they open their mouth and sing. Cranes are really loud, far louder than most birds, partly because their syrinx, or voice box, is enlarged, and partly because they have a trachea, a windpipe tube from their lungs, that is coiled near their breastbone, and it is almost 5 feet long. Their calls can be heard 2.5 miles away. Mated pairs often do a unison call that reinforces their pair bond. The male's call is the lower pitched one. And they have a flight call. Pairs also unison call when they fly together. Sandhill cranes have different sounds for guarding nests, tending chicks, alarm, mating, and contacting other cranes. Sandhills eat about 75% plants. They love the leftover grain in farmers' fields, and about 25% larger insects and earthworms. They will also eat an occasional frog or a small snake. Although their bill looks like a dangerous weapon, it's mostly used as a very precise tweezers or forceps. Cranes roost at night in shallow, ankle-deep water so predators can't approach them without making noise. The rear toe on their foot is called a hallux. The hallux is higher on their leg than the other toes and probably functions to keep them from sinking very far into the mud at night. Sandhill cranes take the local dirt and preen it into their feathers. When they paint themselves to hide in the grasses or against the clay soil, the resulting color is known as cryptic coloration. A crane's nostrils extend all the way through to the other side. The red on a crane's head is actually the color of their bare skin. When they're relaxed, the red only extends back above their eye. But when they are agitated, alert, or frightened, skull muscles pull back the feathers, revealing a much larger patch of red skin. So, how can you tell, besides the erect posture, that these cranes are on alert? Sandhill cranes also use a wide variety of body language to communicate. Aggression, also called agonistic behavior, can be expressed by ruffling feathers to appear larger, like the crane on the left. More serious threat postures are the droop wing threat of the bird on the left and the ruffling and pecking at the thigh of the crane in the center. The third crane is the female that gets all the attention. Another threat, which is obvious, is chasing and biting at another submissive crane. When there's a standoff, with neither crane backing down, cranes, usually males, spar with their bills and jump and rake at each other with their feet. It takes a lot of careful observation to determine whether many animals are threatening or courting. Many of the behaviors of aggression are slightly modified to become signs of love and attraction. The same posture, but with the red head skin retracted or not, can mean totally different things. Here, the male is holding his wings just a little higher than the droop wing threat, and the message is, "Do you have a date for the prom?" Or something like that. Here, part of the courting body language is the wing spread forward tilt. This is the same courting posture from a different angle by the crane on the left. The one on the right is doing a gape sweep by opening its mouth, gaping, and swinging its head back and forth. Here, the male shows his coolness by standing perfectly still in the salute posture. The female runs back and forth in an arc and then stops in a wing spread and hold posture. When the male really wants to show off, he will grab an object on the ground and then jump high and toss the object high into the air. And sometimes they get a little too ambitious. Once a pair of cranes becomes a mated pair, they often jump up and down and do unison calls. They sometimes circle each other with wings spread in a dance called the minuet. Humans did a dance like this in the 1600s. It would be hard to guess whether they jump for joy or not, but it sure seems like a happy dance. The curtsy reminds us of the forward tilt, but the neck feathers are spread. Meanwhile, the male does a jump rake, similar to the fighting posture, but stays farther away and only rakes with one foot. Raking with both feet means a lot of excitement by the male. Of course, he's doing it farther away than he would in an aggression posture. The female is still in a higher wing spread hold. The excitement of sandhill cranes when they're doing a spontaneous jump turn signals a transition from courting to mating. Unison calls and unison flying signal a harmony millions of years old. The turning away and holding position with both wings outstretched signals that the female is willing and ready to be a mom. And this is the R-rated part, where you talk to your parents for the details. 1 or 2 eggs are laid and 1 or 2 chicks born, but not every year. The calls of the first one to hatch stimulate the second chick to start pipping at the eggshell for hatching. Parental care is very attentive and devoted. Chicks, which are called colts for cranes, may start walking away from the nest in about 8 hours. Precious cargo under wing. If 2 colts are born, the male and female split them apart, and very soon each parent will spend time with one of the separated colts only. Chicks are born without much internal heat producing capability. They may take a couple of weeks to reach the body temperatures of their parents. Small morsels, many times each day, attest to the delicacy of their long, sharp beaks. Colts will fledge, begin flying that is, in 10 weeks. They grow fast. They learn quickly how to forage for food. Colts will be the size of adults in 60 days, mature in less than a year, and begin breeding at age 2 or 3. As a general rule, crane offspring stay with their parents for a full year, and sometimes longer. Chicks can be distinguished from adults by having no white cheek patches. In general, the older the crane, the larger the white cheek patch. Families move and feed together and migrate together. Sandhill cranes have a much smaller wintering area than what they need in the breeding season. You can see that the orange breeding area is about 5 times larger than the area where they winter in blue. Like most migrating birds, cranes need far more food when they're feeding chicks. So migration to the much wider north allows them more room to find food. Their breeding areas in Montana reflect where they have wet meadows in which to nest, feed, and roost. In the Flathead Valley, in September and October, we have a migration stopover area near the West Valley ponds, where there are as many as 700 cranes that can be seen at one time. Sandhill cranes have been known to fly nearly 4 miles high on migration. They average about 150 miles per day on their travels, sometimes catching a tailwind and flying at 80 miles per hour. They'll often sense an updraft of air and pause in their migration flight to circle and to gain altitude. Actually, in the late autumn, before they move on, you can see them doing that right over the Flathead Valley. Sandhill cranes have a close relative, the larger and whiter whooping crane. At a distance, they are identified by their white color and black wingtips. Whoopers were once down to a population of 50 in the entire world, but because of the conservation efforts since then, now they number about 500. They are still one of the world's most endangered animals. At closer distances, the black face of the whooping crane contrasts with the white face of the sandhill crane. When scientists started a captive breeding program trying to save the whooping crane species, they realized that the young cranes learned migration routes from their parents. So, after raising whooping cranes with crane costumes, researchers decided to bond the cranes to an ultralight aircraft painted like a crane. Pilots guided the young cranes to wintering areas with mixed success. It turns out that cranes need further instruction by actual crane parents to be able to nest and breed successfully. But the scientists are working on it. Sandhill cranes, because of their size, are able to handle surprise spring and fall snowstorms pretty easily. It's great fun to watch cranes in the evening landing in shallow marshes, settling onto their roost on one leg. In our own West Valley, Sandhill Crane stopover area, it looks like this at dusk. And when they move on, they come together in larger and larger groups. Aldo Leopold, one of the godfathers of conservation, was enamored with the awesome arrival of cranes in the evening roost and in the morning rising for the feeding. This is what he said. On motionless wing they emerge from the lifting mists, sweep a final arc of sky, and settle in clangorous descending spirals to their feeding grounds. A new day has begun on the crane marsh. The largest gathering spot for cranes in North America happens on the shallow Platte River in Nebraska. They keep flying in until there are tens of thousands, and then hundreds of thousands. In the spring and fall, the Platte can have as many as 500,000 cranes in one spot. The Chinese poet Zhang Yi-ning put it this way: "The immortal cranes call, their cries sound from afar, their thoughts circle upward into distant skies. Below, on the autumn rivers, stands a man, above him the bright moon. The man wanders aimless, trailing after the endless Milky Way. The wind blows past him. I too, thinks the man, would like to be utterly free." This video is a part of our Sandhill Cranes educational trunk, which in turn is part of Flathead Audubon's 7th grade Life Science Bird Education Unit. We work with Flathead Land Trust and Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks, doing classroom presentations, educational trunks, activities, and 4 field trips for students: cranes in the autumn, birds of prey in winter, waterfall migrations in early spring, and river bottom ospreys and nesting birds in late spring. Flathead Audubon has 14 bird-related trunks for students, which you can reserve online. A lighthearted series of 3 new videos on why birds rock, what kind of trouble they're having, called Bird Trouble, and Bird Help, which is about what we can do in our houses and in our yards to help them. We have other activities and presentations. Contact us at flatheadaudubon.org for all things bird. And if you get a chance, go out to Smith Lake in the spring to watch nesting cranes, and in the fall go to the West Valley ponds to see a massive migration of birds feeding in the fields.